today's newspaper. Times dated June 21st, 1993. Gabriel's eye is immediately drawn to an article about the voodoo murders. He scans it quickly.
I don't believe this. They've closed the case.
What case?
The voodoo murders case. The paper says that the police have learned that the murders were a result of an underworld cartel war, and that the war is over.
That's not good?
It's ridiculous. And what about the killers? And the voodoo angle, they never got anything on that.
I know you were into it, Gabriel, but if it's over, that's hardly a negative. Anyway, if you're that upset, why don't you talk it over with your pal Mosley?
You don't get it, Grace. Just forget it, okay?
Gabriel decides to check his horoscope, despite his disgust. Death walks close to you today. Resist temptation lest his eye fall on you, too.
Peachy.
Gabriel also spots an ad for Sam Springleton, a jeweler. Sam hangs out at the Napoleon House. Gabriel can't see a way to use that.
Got a minute, Grace?
What's up?
Do you have messages for me?
Your grandmother called. She said to remind you to stop by and go through your father's things.
Okay. Do you have messages for me?
That man from Germany called again, Wolfgang Ritter. Now he's claiming to be a relative of yours.
Interesting. Can I get that phone number for Wolfgang Ritter?
Sure, I'll give it to you when we're done talking.
Could you do some research for me?
Sure, what?
I have a pattern I need you to research.
How interesting. What is it?
It's a reconstruction of the tracings they found around the murder victims. The ones done in flour and blood.
Yuck. You shouldn't carry this kind of thing around. Who knows what these symbols mean?
Well, wear your evil banishing gloves if you want, but check it out for me, would you?
I'll see what I can find out. Anything else?
I can't think of anything. Do you know anything about a secret voodoo houndfall?
In New Orleans?
I think so.
No, I don't, but it sounds dangerous. You're not gonna try to find this voodoo group yourself, are you?
Would I do that? Do you know anything about veves?
Not a clue. Sorry.
Ritual patterns used in voodoo.
Fascinating. I can't help you out, though.
Have you ever heard of Damballa?
No, sorry.
Does the name Ogun Badagri mean anything to you?
Ugh, no. Makes my skin crawl, though.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
St. John's Eve? Never heard of it. Must be a local custom. New Orleanians love to party. Here's that phone number.
Thanks. Didn't Grace say you had to dial 011 first to get international? I'm not calling Germany. That Wolfgang Ritter guy says he's a relative, but I've never heard of him.
The number you... Please hang up.
I'm not calling Germany. That Wolfgang Ritter guy says he's a relative, but I've never heard of him. See you later.
See ya.
Knight, hate to tell you this, but you're out of a book. The Voodoo Murders case has been closed.
I had a feeling you were gonna say that. Son of a bitch. I have to tell you, bud, I'm pretty pissed off about this case being closed. You guys are making a big mistake.
Hey, I'm not any happier about it than you are, Knight, but I've got my orders.
How can I convince you to reopen the case?
Look, the department's not interested.
So, couldn't you make them interested?
With what? I got 7 bodies and still no leads. The voodoo angle's worthless, and besides, these people aren't hurting anybody but out-of-town drug dealers and hitmen.
The voodoo stuff is not worthless. It's the key to the whole thing. And these people are dangerous. They need to be stopped.
Okay, you want me to reopen this case? Prove what you just said.
What do you mean?
You need to prove that there's a legitimate voodoo cult in Narland. Prove that they're a threat. Get me a lead on the cult.
How can I convince you to reopen the case?
I already told you. You still need to prove that there's a legitimate voodoo cult in Narland. Prove that they're a threat. Get me a lead on the cult.
You know, you have a unique way of wearing clothes that's, well, the way they kind of hang, pleating over that stomach of yours, drooping off your butt.
We can't all have the body of a 12-year-old like you, Knight.
Do you know anything about veves?
What?
Veves. They're ritualistic patterns used in voodoo. You know, like those marks we found around the body.
You know what the department says about that, Knight? That voodoo stuff is faked.
Yeah, well, they're wrong. These veves...
Look, just stop worrying about those marks. I don't think they're relevant.
Tell me about yourself.
What do you want to talk about that for now? We're not doing the book anymore. Besides, you already know too much about me, Knight.
Have you ever heard of Damballa?
You mean gumbo?
No, I mean Damballa.
Never heard of it.
Can you tell me anything about a secret voodoo hound fall?
Oh, come on. Somebody's pulling your leg, Knight.
Are you sure?
Ain't nothing secret about voodoo in Narlands. There's a museum, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, but that's the stuff they want you to see.
You're getting mighty paranoid, Knight.
Does the name Ogun Badagri mean anything to you?
Say what?
Ogun Badagri. It's a voodoo loa.
Speak English or shut up, Knight.
Sorry, didn't mean to confuse you. Guess I'll take that as a no.
Gabriel doesn't want to use the phone here. Mosley's phone.
I'm gonna hit the road.
Ciao, baby.
Gabriel, I'm so glad you stopped by.
Oh, sorry it's been a while, Grandma.
Not at all. Give me a kiss.
Now, come on, sit down. Tell me how you're doing. I'm gonna go up to the attic, Gran.
Be careful of the dust.
The old trunk looks like it's gone to hell and back.
There's a lot of Granddad's old stuff in here. Might be something interesting. What's this? It's some sort of key.
A bundle of letters. Love letters between Harrison and Rebecca. More of Harrison Knight's German books.
Just what I need.
Some old clothes, including a pair of leather shorts.
Aren't those called lederhosen?
Some old clothes, including a pair of leather.
Aren't those called...
A skylight lets welcome sunlight into the attic.
There's nothing I want in there.
That box of knickknacks has been up here for at least 5 years. Grandma's attic is a storehouse of forgotten treasures and useless junk.
Do I really look that desperate? I think I'll leave that up here.
It's an old dress dummy that Gran had in her sewing room years ago.
My first impression of the female form. I think I'll leave that up here.
These old picture frames have been up here for years.
I think I'll leave that up here.
The old velvet curtains hung in the parlor before Gran lightened the place up. These old picture frames have been up here for years. An elaborate mechanical clock, probably of German origin, is among the discarded treasures of the attic.
I think I'll leave that up here.
There's an interesting design in the base of the clock. The face of the clock is hand-painted. A ring of 6 symbols surrounds the face of the clock. A sword, a sun, an angel, a noose, an eclipse, and a dragon. The ring of symbols doesn't appear to have any mechanical function, but it does move. Nothing happens.
Does this mean anything to you, Gran?
Sorry. No, Gabriel.
How have you been, Gran?
Just fine, dear. I'm sorry I bothered you at work, but, I was hoping you'd get a chance to go through your father's things in the attic.
Don't be silly. You can call me anytime. What can you tell me about voodoo?
Voodoo? What an odd question, Gabriel. Of course, you always were interested in monster movies and all that other weird stuff. You get that from your father and granddad. I don't know anything about it, dear. Of course, it was very big in New Orleans at one time, but you don't hear so much about it these days. Too much else in the world to worry about, I guess.
What can you tell me about the voodoo murders?
Oh, Gabriel, nothing. And I don't want to. I sometimes wonder what this world is coming to.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
New Orleans is very southern, of course, though not as much as it used to be when I was a girl. It's gotten much more influenced by the East Coast and that California stuff. Still, it hasn't changed as much as other places, I reckon. We've always been happy here.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
My goodness, boy, you lived here all your life, just like me. I can't tell you much that you don't already know.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
St. John's Eve? I remember when I was a girl, we always had a St. John's Eve Mass. The Mass was said at midnight, and we held candles. One time, on the way home, we were waylaid by a large group of drunken revelers. They didn't hurt us, but oh, I was frightened. My father was furious. We never went to St. John's Eve Mass after that.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
I haven't celebrated it in years, Gabriel. I'm sure there's still Mass in the more traditional churches, but I don't go.
Have you ever heard of Marie Laveau?
Marie Laveau. Oh, of course. She was that voodoo woman, wasn't she? She preyed on people's fears and superstitions, is what I think. There are always those willing to take other people's money for nothing. You stay away from people like that, Gabriel.
Yes, Gran. Do you know anything about snakes?
Snakes? What kind of snakes, dear?
I don't know, local kinds.
Well, we used to get cottonmouths in the park when I was a girl, but I haven't heard of one being sighted for years. Milk snakes and garter snakes are also around these parts, but they can't hurt you.
Thanks, Gran. Do you know anything about animal masks?
Why, no, dear. Do you mean Mardi Gras masks?
Never mind, Gran. Can you tell me anything about a secret voodoo hound fall?
Gabriel, my goodness. What are you up to these days?
Oh, nothing, Gran, really.
You'd better not be. You know you're the only family I have left.
I know, Gran. It's okay. Does the phrase Cabrice and Co. mean anything to you?
Something without something, I think. Oh, my French is so rusty, I swear my mind is going.
No, it's okay. Thanks. Does the name Ogun Badagri mean anything to you?
What, dear?
Never mind. Have you ever heard of Damballa?
What, dear?
Never mind. Tell me about yourself.
Me? Surely you have something more interesting to talk about.
No, come on, Gran.
Oh, all right, dear. What do you want to hear?
Tell me about before you met Granddaddy.
Well, you know I was born Rebecca Wright. My daddy owned a lot of land outside of town. We grew peas and corn and cotton, all kinds of things. It was a good childhood, but my father was very strict. He didn't much let me out of his sight.
What do you do all day?
You know how I love to knit and work in my garden. I also take long walks. It's the only way to keep an old body like mine from stiffening up.
You're not old.
Oh, don't be foolish. I'm older than the hills.
Tell me how you met Granddaddy.
Oh, I met Helson at a church revival. There was a traveling preacher back then, a big fella named Reverend Jim. I even remember his slogan, "Come to me to find your way." Your granddad was sitting right behind me and my girlfriend, Alma. And at one point, old Reverend Jim was flinging his hair around with his fine brimstone annex. And a piece of it, one of those small add-on do's for men, went flying off. I swear, Helson and I were the only ones that noticed. We both started laughing to beat the band. Everyone looked at us like we were a couple of loonies. Oh, it was then I knew that he was for me.
How you feeling these days?
Fit as a fiddle, and don't you worry your head about it.
Just tell me anything at all.
I had your father when I was 22. The doctors told me I couldn't have any more after him, so I'm afraid I spoiled him rotten.
Just tell me anything at all.
I hate to admit it, but I was a jealous little thing when your granddaddy and I were younger. I loved him so ferociously, and he did attract the eyes of the ladies whether he wanted to or not.
Oh, nothing. Never mind.
All right, dear.
Tell me about our family.
Who would you like to hear about? Your granddad, your father, or your mother?
Tell me something about Granddad.
Your granddad immigrated to America when he was 21. He walked his way through school, met and married me, and we had your father, Philip.
Tell me something about Granddad.
Your granddad supported me and your father with bookkeeping. Oh, I tell you what, though, he hated every minute of it. Didn't really like bookkeeping one bit. Maybe that was why he had the worst luck with jobs. Oh, the nights he'd come home afraid to tell me he lost another. And I'd tell him it didn't matter to me, but he felt ashamed, Gabriel.
Tell me something about Granddad.
Helson was only 36 when he died. Your father was 8 years old at the time. Your granddad was hit by a streetcar in the business district. It took me nearly a year to believe he was really gone.
I'm sorry, Gran.
Oh, I know you are, dear.
Tell me about my father.
Your father was my only child. How we adored him.
Tell me about my father.
Philip suffered from terrible nightmares, just like your granddad did. Oh, they were two peas in a pod.
Tell me about my father.
When Philip met your mother, oh, it was love at first sight. They were married 2 weeks later. Never looked at a girl seriously until then, and he looked at plenty. You have your father's way with women, Gabriel. And your granddad's.
Tell me about my father.
I wanted to just lay down and die when he and your mother were killed in that car crash when you were only 8. It was the thought of taking care of you that kept me going, Gabriel. The police say your father swerved off the road after being frightened by something. Perhaps a deer in the road, or a wildcat.
Tell me about my father.
Your granddad wanted Philip to have a normal life. He was obsessed by that thought. He pushed Philip to go to law school, but Philip was driven to art. He painted almost in a daze. He would get so inside himself when he worked.
Tell me about my father.
He always hated that it was Margaret's money that supported the three of you when his painting couldn't. I kept telling him, try something more cheerful, like a landscape or two, but he couldn't do it. His work was just too dark and disturbing for the public, you know.
Tell me something about Granddad.
Did you know that your granddad was a poet? He was. He wrote the most beautiful poetry for me when we were courting. I always thought he should have done something with that gift, but he was such a practical man, didn't believe in chasing after dreams.
Tell me about my mother.
Your mother was Margaret Templeton when your father met her. She came from a very wealthy Creole family in New Orleans. She was beautiful and reckless. She was madly in love with your father, of course, but I also think she liked to find her family. Since you're so interested in family history these days, why don't you go by St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 and visit the family tomb? It would be such a sweet gesture.
It's just past the Ross tomb, right? Oh, maybe I will. Tell me about my mother.
Your mother's family refused to give her money after the marriage. All she had left was a modest trust fund from her great aunt, who happened to like Philip. The remainder of your mother's trust fund became yours when she died. That's what you used to open your bookshop.
Tell me about my mother.
The Templetons are all gone now. Every last one of them. Oh, they never wanted anything to do with us, of course. What a waste.
You know, you get prettier every time I see you.
Oh, you.
Tell me about yourself.
What more do you want to know, dear?
Just tell me anything at all.
I get lonely sometimes, but I have lots of girlfriends in the neighborhood. I call one of them if I'm feeling blue.
Oh, nothing. Never mind.
All right, dear.
Oh, nothing. Never mind.
All right, dear.